I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. And we sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value. So, I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. This is the 384th episode of the Political Spotlight. I'm your host, Kristopher H. Bilbrey. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are happy to have you, whether you're watching live or via replay on your own time. Thank you for giving us a little bit of your time. We understand how valuable it is, and we are very thankful that you are here. While you're here and watching, we ask you to do the things that you're supposed to do on your end while doing YouTube or Rumble or X, whatnot. Go through and hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. It does not cost you anything. Share the show with everyone you know. And if you're here live, we would love for you to comment over here on the right-hand side. If you're here in the future watching via replay, comment down below and let us know what you're thinking. We will try to interact with you, obviously. Producer Kate is here and helping us make the show go a little smoother. We're thankful for that. And we also, I think this is a first for the show. We've got some special guests that are going to be joining us this evening. We're going to be bringing them up here in just a moment, but we want to kind of set the scene here a little bit. Tomorrow, if you're watching this live, tomorrow, Wednesday, February 5th, the Indiana General Assembly, specifically speaking, the House of Representatives, the Indiana State House, there will be a committee meeting at 10:30, and that committee is the Courts and Criminal Codes Committee. And during that committee, they will be talking about Indiana House Bill 1186. Now, if you are just new here watching this show for the very first time, you don't know what that is. It is a bill that is just absolutely wreaking havoc right now, making a lot of people in Indiana concerned for what might come from this bill. It is a bill that is I understand, I guess, in theory, what it's attempting to do, but it seems like it's trying to fix a problem where there's already solutions for the problem there. And so instead of the Indiana state government attempting to take home rule away from the local towns and cities and counties. They should just let that be and let each individual department deal with this. Let the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy deal with this. But they've said, no, we think that we know better. And so they have put forward a bill. Indiana State Representative Stephen Bartles from District 74, I believe, has put forward this bill. It has been co-authored by Matt Commons, and it is it's a thing like many bills. There are some good parts to it, and then there are some really sucky parts to it. So there are a couple parts in the bill dealing with correctional officers and those who work in correctional facilities. If for God willing, or God forbid, if they are injured, killed in the line of duty, they would have line of duty benefits. And so that's good. And then there are some things that address increasing the penalty if you're acting stupid and driving erratically through construction zones, or if you're using a firearm through those. And those are good things, right? But the problem that myself and a lot of people have with the bill is there's a section in here which originally was trying to basically tell law enforcement officers who have training and who have historically had jurisdiction basically statewide, that now that's going to come to an end, and they are making these different categories, and they're telling people they can't work off-duty security, which for reserves and full-time, off-duty security is a big a kind of a perk to having the job, and that's not the main thing, and it shouldn't be the main focus. But in today's world, that is something that a lot of people care about, making extra money and doing, things for your family and being able to do that. That is important. And this bill is looking to stop that and to kind of put the kibosh on that. So for the last couple of shows where we've talked about this, you've heard from me. And I've been talking about this, and I've been telling you my thought, and I've been saying that I wanted to get some folks who are actually currently in law enforcement in Indiana on the show and talk to them and let you guys hear from them. Number one, to hear, these people aren't a bunch of goofballs. They are serious about what they're doing. They've put time into this. They are trained. It's not like they just showed up one day and they got a badge and a gun and they were like, okay, well, we're here. They've actually put in training into this. They've put years of their life into this. And so I want you to hear from them, kind of humanize them. I think a lot of times people have this misconception about police officers, yada, yada. So I want to give them a chance to kind of humanize themselves and explain why this bill is problematic for them, for their departments, and kind of go from there. I do want to let everybody know we will be live streaming the meeting tomorrow morning at 10:30. The meeting will start at 10:30. We will start on time at 10:30. The bill probably won't be heard for the first hour, maybe hour and 20 minutes, but don't take my word for that, because they could get in and they could pass the first couple bills, just boom, bang, pow, and then you could miss it. So you might want to tune in at 10:30 and just see what goes on, or tune in after the fact and be able to fast forward through it. But we will be live streaming it right here on the Political Spotlight, so you can tune in and see all of that. You don't have to fight the Indiana General Assembly website because it's a pain in the ass. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up our guest. We're going to be joined, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be joined by three law enforcement officers from the state of Indiana for this law enforcement roundtable discussion on Indiana House Bill 1186. And these law enforcement officers are Ron Jones, deputy with the Miami County, Indiana Sheriff's Department; Devon Ashcraft, lieutenant with the Shirley, Indiana Police Department; and Elias Donker, I think I said that right. I think it's patrolman. I should have asked. Patrolman with the West Terre, Haute, Indiana Police Department. So without further ado, we're going to bring these men and women up, and we'll go from there. Here's Ron. Here's Devon, and here is Elias. Hello.
Hey.
How's it going?
Right. All right. So I guess we'll just kind of go clockwise around, starting with Ron. Tell a little bit about yourself, maybe why you're in law enforcement, why you do what you do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so Ron Jones, this is my 9th year in law enforcement, all 9 years as a reserve. So very early in my career, like a lot of folks that start as reserves, thought that I was gonna, go full time, right? Ever since I was a child, I had some very impactful stuff that made me want to be a law enforcement officer, for the right reasons, to help serve, protect, all that sort of stuff. Life kind of took me in a different direction. So I work for a software company. Make a really good living, candidly. Like, don't use that against me in a lawsuit or anything. But I'm not doing this to go work ODE. Sure, I've done that, earlier in my career when I was younger, when I didn't have that stability. But I'm really fortunate in the fact that I have that financial stability now. So being a reserve is a way for me to give back to a community, to get out there and not only help people, but have a greater sense of doing good. And, I like to think that in the time I've done that. We've organized great things like helping people in their time of need. We hosted a family for Thanksgiving a couple years ago that wouldn't have had a Thanksgiving. Built a wheelchair ramp, stuff that goes beyond. And, Kristopher, it really hits on what you said, right? Humanizing the badge. We all have lives outside of this. And it goes much more than having police powers in a certain part of your geography.
Yeah, right. And I think that's, first of all, what I think is interesting is there's a lot of people. I know a lot of reserves who are in your line of work, in like your day job, will if you will. And I think it lends itself to that because it seems like you have a little bit of flexibility there. I would assume you work from home, kind of deal. So I know a lot of people that do that, and that's the first thing that a lot of people ask is like, why would you go do this for free? Why do you want to do this? Why are you reserved? Like what's the deal? And a lot of people don't realize exactly like you said. Number one, there's a couple different people. There's the people that are young that want to get into law enforcement, and either there's no hiring processes going, or they haven't been picked up during their first hiring process, so they go out and become a reserve, and they're trying to learn everything they can. And maybe they're a little overzealous and they're annoying, but they figure that out, and eventually they go full time or whatever. Then there's the person like you who who's got a really good career, but you still want to give back. Or I know that there's a lot of people who are like business owners and who are maybe a little like independently wealthy or whatnot, and maybe they're closer to retirement age or whatever, and they want to go out and do the reserve thing, and they're not looking to go full time, but they look to help. They're members of the community, and they do good things. And then there's a lot of retired law enforcement officers who were full time, but they're now reserves, who aren't ready to give it up, that do it. And of course, there is that subsection of people who they just want a badge in their pocket to pick up chicks, or I guess men in your case, or they want a free, they think they're going to get free Subway or whatever. There are assholes with it, and like anything else, they get washed out, or hopefully they get washed out. But the overwhelmingly, the people that are reserves tend to be really dedicated to it. So I appreciate your answer there. Moving on to Devon, what a little bit about yourself. What's
So my
going on with
story
you?
little different than Ron's. I come from a family of law enforcement. My dad's a career officer, recently retired. He's also a career FOP official for the state of Indiana. So it's been in my blood my entire life. It's something I always wanted to do, but I was a single mother with 2 children at home. So going to the academy for 16 weeks just was not an option for me. I could not leave. I couldn't do it. At the age of 34, I knew I was going to age out soon if I didn't make a decision. So the option arose to try to go for a reserve position. Interviewed with a couple departments and chose Shirley. Been there for 9 years now. I have dedicated numerous nights, weekends, time away from my family, time away from my kids, to serve my community, which is something I always wanted to do. When I became an officer, I had a very successful residential and cleaning company. Unfortunately, COVID hit. And when COVID hit, at the same time, my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. So I ended up losing my company. At that time, I didn't know what I was going to do. And the option after 4 years of being in Shirley arose to work ODE till I figured out what I wanted to do. So I was grateful for that opportunity because it allowed me to keep my home. It allowed me to keep my vehicle while I still serve my community. So I started working off-duty security in Marion County while serving as a reserve in the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And honestly, I've just done it since then because it allowed me to serve a community in Marion County, serve my community in Hancock and Henry County for Shirley, and just be my passion. It's something that I love. So if this bill passes, it's going to restrict my life in numerous ways, as far as my income and things like that. But I also am very passionate about the fact with my department trains very well. We keep up with all our mandates. We keep up on everything we're supposed to do. So it bothers me when I hear certain groups of people or certain people talk about we don't have the right types of training, because I know the time I've taken away from my family and the time I put into my community to train properly. So that's kind of my story and how I became a reserve and what ODE means to me and what serving Shirley means to me.
Very good, very good. And before we go on to Elias, it seems like in law enforcement a lot there's jargon that people use and you don't really think about it. For those people that are out there that are watching that maybe don't know, ODE is off-duty employment, and so that's any type of security gig. And I think a lot of times reserves get a bad rap for it. I think that there are some that can abuse it, and they do. But it's not just reserves that work ODE, off-duty security or off-duty employment. Full-time officers do it, and it's something that happens. There are big events, specifically in Indianapolis, that if there weren't full-time and reserves working off-duty employment or security gigs, it just wouldn't happen. NFL, Colts games, Pacers games, events that go on, all of the different like Comic Con and Black Expo and all of the different events that happen downtown Indy, at the convention center and whatnot. So when you hear these folks talk and they hear about the bill, ODE, that's off-duty employment. So that's what that is. Okay, moving on to Mr. Elias here. Sir, what's your story?
Well, I'm a product of small town Indiana. I commissioned into the Army. I did 3 tours in Iraq, was an officer in the 101st Airborne. And, law enforcement actually wasn't my first career, but it was a second chance at being able to serve my community. Unfortunately, I came home with some injuries and a ton of experience in hard skills. The injuries prevent me from being a full-time officer. I can't do 40 hours a week, 52 weeks out of the year. It's not realistic. But serving as a reserve, I got recruited into reserve law enforcement, loved it. I'd been road released to be on patrol by myself for all of about I don't know, we'll call it 6 weeks, when 3 guys got pinned down in an ambush, and that was the big ambush you guys heard about in 2020 with the 3 deputies pinned down. So all of a sudden, my experience became very valuable when there were bullets flying through the air, and I wound up being the Deputy of the Year for the state of Indiana from the Indiana Sheriff's Association, and getting a Medal of Valor, all as a reserve deputy. And now, because of that incident, I'm involved in training officers. I train officers all over the United States on skills that they don't get in their training, but turns out they need, especially as the threat to law enforcement becomes more kinetic. And then I'm with organizations like the Wounded Blue to make sure that officers get the psychological readiness they need, because it's not just about winning a gunfight, right? It's about not only winning a gunfight, but returning to duty, returning to being a husband and a mother and a father, and, you know, all those things that we are. So if this bill wasn't such a serious threat, I'd find it laughable.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you got some people that are turning it into a serious threat to Indiana's readiness.
Yeah, absolutely. So are all of your departments, I would assume, your departments are all against the bill, correct?
Yes.
I'm not authorized to speak for my department.
Okay. That's fair.
So I can tell you, let's take this down and quantify it, right? If you look at our agency, we're a rural sheriff's department. I mean, you're talking 35,000 people, about 377 square miles. So north to south in the county, if I'm running, lights and sirens fast as I can go, it's going to take 30 minutes to get there. Generally speaking, especially last year, you were lucky if there were 2 deputies working the entire county. And if it wasn't for reserves, there'd be 1 deputy working and responding to calls. I mean, I can tell you for certain, we went to a serious domestic last spring involving small children, just a terrible situation. And had I not decided to come in and pick up a Saturday shift last minute, that deputy would have been responding and making entry into that house by himself.
Yep. That story happens every day in Indiana.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This isn't IMPD where you call for another officer and 20 seconds later you've got 10 people, right? I mean, if it goes down where we're at, right? If I call for help, if I'm lucky, there's a neighboring county, or there's the state police, or maybe we've got somebody else on, but they're still 5 minutes away. If we're super lucky, generally it's going to be 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Not only that, but there's the medical side of it too. Our town is split like Cumberland is. So we're split right down the middle between 2 different counties. So we assist those counties. Let's say, for instance, Hancock County. They may get a medical call or a break-in call or an alarm call, something, and they're all the way in Greenfield, and they need to come all the way out to the other end of the county line. Well, that's where we step in and get there first. We recently had a reserve who medical call came in. She was cardiac arrest, pulled her out of the vehicle, saved her life. We have numerous. I just recently found kids in the street that were left home alone, a 4-month-old baby. So we need these reserves. Our department is 80%, 85% reserves for a town that's in 2 different counties and assists 2 different counties. We depend on the reserves to make our community safe. Our fire department is volunteers. So if there's a medical call, those volunteers have to get to station, get in their trucks, the ambulances, and get to the home or business. We're there usually first. We respond to all medical and fire calls as well. So we are there usually first before them. And that's imperative when you're waiting for another, either Greenfield, Buck Creek, somewhere to get there first. And we're already right in their vicinity.
Absolutely.
I think I saw it in the chat. I mean, let's call this what it is. It's not an attempt to defund the police. It's an attempt to control one agency in particular, maybe 2 or 3 others, by governing the masses. Instead of handling this at the department level, I can't speak for everyone else, but my department, we have a limit of 5 reserves. Those 5 reserves, you're not allowed to work ODE. You have limits on what you can and can't do. There's other fringe benefits on the back end, but ultimately you have to want to do this for the right reasons. And our department takes charge and says, you're going to go to this training or you're out. And that's how these departments should handle it. That's how the state should handle it. Put it in the agency's hands and enforce it.
Absolutely.
Don't govern the masses because of the wrongdoing of one specific agency that we all know about.
Well, I actually don't know. I'm late catching up to that, but it does seem to be a draconian solution to a problem that doesn't exist. And that problem isn't even being addressed by this bill. This bill does not say a word about off-duty employment. So you're going to ruin the response of most of the counties in the state by passing a bill that doesn't address the intended problem anyway. I mean, what is this, Washington, D.C.?
And
go ahead.
Oh, look at how cunning these folks are that are at these agencies. They're going from small unincorporated town, or maybe it has a little bit of incorporation, and they're saying, hey, we'll be the police for you. We'll even do it for free. Just let us come in here and we're going to bring our cars. We're going to bring our people. We're going to bring our guys. We're going to stand up a nice looking website. And then, oh, by the way we get it back on the back end is we get to go work and do as much security as we want. Now, you can't tell me you're doing that for the right reasons. When those specific agencies, they give their officers time towards their monthly required hours, drive time counts. So if you live an hour and a half like some of these people do, they're spending 3-4 hours a shift just driving to and from the town. How is that effective to a small town that may or may not need services? I would say in rural Indiana, they probably do, but they're probably not any better off now than they were before that police department was stood up.
As someone who, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
As someone who works off duty, I understand that. I do. And I am all for what I would refer to as badge factories. You know, they need to be handled, and it needs to be the academy holding them accountable, and it needs to be the departments individually be held accountable. I know with our town, we have a strict ROD policy is very strict. One, you can't even ask to work it till you're at least on a year. And then even at that, each individual officer has to be evaluated, and the job has to be evaluated and signed off on. On top of that, if you do not get your training done, do not show up to training, do not show up to meetings, and you do not do your required hours, you are pulled from ODE and not allowed to work it. Yeah. So I think if that is going to be an option for us as reserves, I think that's the way to go about it, that the departments need to be held accountable for it, instead of punishing I don't even want to say punishing, because that's not the correct word, but instead of going after everyone, like you said, each department needs to be held accountable, because I know our department and my chief is very strict about it and has his guidelines about it. And I'm fortunate for that. And I was very fortunate that I had that option when I lost my business.
Yeah.
And I think she makes a great point. Most of the agencies I've heard of, most of the agencies I've gone to come in for training, to train them on maneuver and, kinetic action, they all have that kind of standard that's evaluated monthly. But it's not about just reserve officers. Like, this bill only affects reserve officers. The point of this bill is it affects every single Hoosier, because it diminishes the readiness of law enforcement. You're going to cut the ranks of how many officers are available, probably close to a third, I would say, of hours they spend. And when you have multiple counties, like when I was a county deputy, it was 383 square miles, really similar to his situation. You're going to cut a third of your available coverage, and then you're going to make the officers concerned about whether or not they cross some imaginary line on the ground in order to enforce what they're doing. We had a tornado in Sullivan, ended up killing 2 people, destroying dozens of homes. Most of us were able to get there very quickly, because all we did was get on our radio and say, hey, do you want us to go help out? Yep, go. And I spent another, 12 hours on duty after my shift with a thermal monocular and using stuff I learned in the military to, unfortunately do recovery operations. But, I didn't have to worry about some imaginary line on the ground for jurisdiction. And then the other thing you're going to run into is the people who show up to be reserve officers, by and large, are your most civic-minded people. You can't make enough money off duty to go get in a situation where you're making traffic stops or getting shot at to make up for it. So you're going to take your most civic-minded people, and now you're going to make them concerned about in court, how's an attorney going to go after them because the state has now made them look like they are some kind of inferior type of law enforcement officer. And you're going to be more vulnerable to civil lawsuits because of that, because attorneys are going to try to leverage that in their favor. And then don't get into, get me into LEOSA eligibility. You want me to be a cop, you want to mess with my jurisdiction, and you want to mess with my eligibility for LEOSA? Okay, yeah, that's not a lot of incentives for a third of your man hours to keep doing what they're doing. No offense, man hours, I'm from the 90s. Person hours, sorry.
And that's a great point. Like when you look at what Matt Commons just said a few days ago, right? With, hey, the latest amendment, it really, saved this bill and put us on the right track. No, it makes, now there's probably some people out there that'll say, oh, I'll keep doing it. Whatever. I'm not going to leave the county. To me, Elias brought up a great point. Look at the liability that you're now putting on reserves. You're essentially objectifying them and saying you're your own category. Yep. And if I'm a defense attorney, that's who I'm going to go attack. Look who was on that scene. And it could be just as simple as I backed onto it. I showed up after everything was done, gave a couple of high fives and got back in the car and, went and got some Twizzlers or something. But I'm still going to be on that CAD run, and that could compromise an entire case. And I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm not going to do it to the guys I work with. And I'm not going to do it to a potential victim of a bad situation, because the legislatures are so disconnected that they don't understand what it is that they're actually doing.
Right. Yeah. Right. And that's exactly correct. And Landon, let me go back and see where this is. Landon Dean, he said everyone, even beyond ODE, reserves couldn't respond to schools or emergencies just outside their town limits.
Yep.
I know in my community here, I live in Muncie in Delaware County, and we have the city of Muncie, which is a 110 man department. We're a bigger department. Delaware County Sheriff's Department, we've got 50 full-time deputies, and then we've got 6 small town departments, and then we've got Ball State University, and a couple of our departments have the main school for the town several miles outside of the town limits. And so, God forbid there's an active shooter there, and that's kind of a weird catch-22, because you were talking, Elias, about, most of the reserves are civic minded, and this bill's going to say, you can't do this, you can't go there. And people are going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to stand and watch. Who's really going to do that? I mean, this is going to put people in a weird spot.
Do I look like the kind of guy who's going to ask permission to respond to a school shooting? I'm going to show up with a pair of Oakleys and a fork if I have to, but I shouldn't have to be worried about getting sued afterward because some guy who's never carried a badge and a firearm is writing a bill because he's mad, big mad about whatever he's big mad about, with somebody getting paid for off-duty employment 90 or 100 miles away from most of the small towns being affected.
Yeah.
How is that government of the people? And are we going to talk about the legislatures? Because let me tell you about what their response has been when you contact them about this.
Yeah. Let's talk about that real quick before we do. Because I want to say this. So first of all, when all of this first hit, and I first started doing the first couple shows about this last week, I reached out to several, and the first thing that I noticed was they didn't have a clue what they were really talking about. Yep. They didn't know the difference between Tier 1, Tier 2. A couple of them literally told me that Tier 2 was the 40-hour pre-basic. And I was like, no, that's not the 40-hour pre-basic. The 40-hour pre-basic is the 40-hour pre-basic. Tier 2 is a separate training, a period of time that you go to the academy. And they didn't know that. And then one of the people said the reason that they had such a hard on for this was because in their town, a code enforcement officer, quote unquote officer, so a man who doesn't have police or arrest powers, or woman, man or woman who doesn't have a badge, has a placard, a little plastic card from the city or the town, went into someone's house and started searching and like held the people there and really went above and beyond. And I said, look, that's got nothing to do with reserves or law enforcement. That guy should be sued. The town should be sued. Those people should be going nuts about this, but that's got nothing to do with law enforcement. And so you've got like you said, a bunch of people that don't have a clue about law enforcement. And I guess they say that Steve Bartles, the author, did 9 years in like Lafayette or somewhere around there. So he's been in law enforcement for a period of time, I guess a while ago. But there's rumors that he's done this for all kinds of various reasons. He was pulled over, yada yada. I don't know if any of that's true or not. But yeah, go ahead. Did you actually get responses back, Elias?
No, that's the whole point. I mean, how we got in contact was I wrote a letter and I sent a copy to you.
Yeah.
I emailed the Facebook page. For the caucus. I emailed the caucus webpage for the Republicans. I got the emails that were supposed to be for every office. I went through the committee list and I used the committee page where it has the individual legislature members page. Fill out this form to contact me. I did the minority head, the majority head. I did the assistant. I emailed most of the conference through their page also. I have gotten no response, no response from any of them, from any feedback holding them accountable to the people. So you've got no idea where they are. And in addition, and I think this is very telling, go online and try to find a updated copy of this bill. Because if you go to the .gov website, the legiscan.gov website, it's still got a copy of this bill that doesn't talk about reserves. I had to go through back channels finding a PDF that's being passed around to find change 6 of this bill where it talks about reserves in the beginning. But as far as transparency and accountability to the people, it's not only not there, it's almost being deliberately subverted.
Well, absolutely. Well, and look at the fact, that they had committee, the first committee, they had 2 different meetings. They allowed some testimony during the first meeting. There were a whole plethora of officers ready to testify at the second meeting. They did not allow testimony. They're having a committee meeting tomorrow. They are not allowing testimony. And it's like, why are we not allowing that? These people, much like law enforcement officers, you guys all, people always tell you, we pay your salaries. Well, that's true.
Yeah, basically, they're doing the equivalent of turning off their body cameras.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's exactly correct.
Right.
There's no transparency. These people are not meeting the public where they are, meeting the citizens where we are. They should be opening their communications to us and falling all over themselves to talk with us, but they're not.
You said should.
There is 2 points I really want the public to understand. That, let's take, for instance, the Taylor Swift concert that was just here. There was 210,000 people that came to downtown Indianapolis. Same with Royal Rumble that was just here. Now there's talks for WrestleMania to be here. 65% of the officers that work that are reserves. Metro and Marion County officers do not have the manpower nor the availability to help secure those. So you're going to pull all of us out of that, not allow us to work that. What do you think that's going to happen to the safety of the public? It's not going to end well. And that's what people need to understand. They also need to understand that, let's say I'm off work and I'm driving down the road and I see something happen, a criminal act taking place. One part of the bill is now saying if it's exigent circumstances, but who dictates exigent circumstances? Now I'm going to question whether or not I need to intervene. But above all, I took an oath. I took an oath to protect my community and to serve my community. I'll be honest with you, I'm going to intervene regardless of a bill. If I see someone in danger or hurt or needing help, I'm not going to sit there and wonder, well, is this exigent? Do I have to worry about this? I'm going to do what I need to do because I took an oath, regardless of what your paper bill says.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, all right. So, depending on what happens, and we were talking about this before the show, and for the people out there that maybe don't know, what happens tomorrow is it will go before this committee. Apparently, they're not taking testimony, so they will vote. If it passes, it will then go on to the full House of Representatives floor. They will vote on it. It will then go to the Senate, and basically the process starts all over. It will go to committee. They may or may not allow testimony. They will more than likely hide from citizens. They will pass it or not pass it. And then it will, it could go to one committee. It could go to two committees. I don't know what will happen over there, but chances are it'll only go to one committee after that if it passes. I think over there it'll have to pass twice. If it passes twice, then it will go to the full Senate and it'll be a done deal. So we are fighting a very uphill battle here. It can still be defeated, but people are going to need to really start reaching out, start calling, contact your legislative assistants. I had someone message me today, and I've been pushing this idea of contacting the state representatives directly them. Somebody messaged me today and said, if you really want to talk to somebody and set up some kind of a conversation with them, that your best bet is to try to get a legislative assistant on the phone. So calling their offices and telling them, like, look, I'm not going to stop calling. I want to talk to this person. I don't know what it's going to do at this point, but you can't just stop doing and say, well, all right, I'm not going to do anything. So my question is, if this passes, I mean, what position is this going to put you guys in? Are you, I think I get where you guys are coming from, but each one of you, are you going to continue on? What say you on that?
Yeah, so I'll take that first. I'm going to apologize. I'm going to go a little long-winded. So there's kind of a couple of avenues that I'm pursuing myself, right? So we talked about the training. I'm fortunate that I've had a ton of training in my career and would qualify for at least from the cryptic message or the cryptic statement on Elias' website, a tier 2 waiver. So to kind of, I guess, give the folks at home a better knowledge of what that is, right? So tier 1's kind of the thing that bigger departments have to go through. I think it's if you're over 4 or 5 full-time officers, that's where you have to go, right? If you're below that and you're a marshal's department, you can generally go to tier 2, which is almost the exact same length as tier 1 now, which makes absolutely no sense. But I could apply for a tier 2 waiver, and that gets me the ability to keep doing this, right? So the answer is, if I can't do that, I'm done. Now, here's where the issue comes in. I can't get the waiver as it stands right now unless I'm marked as a part-time officer. I have to be marked as someone who's receiving compensation from my agency. With how it's written right now, my agency, as much as they would love to sponsor me and help me through this and do whatever they could to get me that certification, they can't, because they cannot employ tier 2 law enforcement officers.
Yeah, right.
Is there some way that we could try to circumvent the system and use some weird power that the sheriff may or may not have? Maybe. But then ultimately, it's up to the Law Enforcement Training Board and ILEA to decide if they're going to meet that or not. With that tier 2 waiver, so much of that is dependent upon how the director and the Law Enforcement Training Board feels about you as a candidate, that it's not an objective process, right? So even if I didn't get the waiver, say I then go to a tier 2 academy, like the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office has one. I think Southport has one. There's a dozen or so located in central Indiana. That wouldn't matter, right? Because my sheriff's office can still not sponsor me for that, nor can a lot of agencies. Elias, I'm sure your agency probably couldn't do that. Not that you're speaking for them or I'm trying to speak for them, but it's this catch-22 that everyone's been put into because of this bucket. So unfortunately, I've got to tell my leadership, hey, I'm probably done in June because I like you guys and everything, but I'm not losing my house over this whole thing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I I actually don't work off-duty employment, kind of as a matter of principle, because I am a disabled veteran and I don't want to. That's why I volunteer.
Sure.
You know, there's some integrity there for me, just maintaining my personal integrity. But like he said, the liability aspect. I mean, I'm going to have a very serious conversation with a criminal attorney if this bill makes my family liable for me to get in another fatal law enforcement shooting like I did in 2020. I
Sure.
mean, I'm not going to put my family at risk.
And you know, the thing is, that sounds like, for people who are not in law enforcement, that sounds like, what are these people talking about? Like, if this happens, like, they could go a whole 5 lifetimes and this will never happen. That's right. Or your first call tomorrow could be some nonsense. You know, it just happened. It just happened on close to where I am on Interstate 69 last Thursday. How many times have you got a call to assist motorists? Someone's ran out of gas or whatever. Someone was walking along the interstate. They could have ran out of gas or broke down or who knows. 2 police officers pull up next to him, say, "Hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Could we take you someplace?" And the guy's like, instead of being like, "Yeah, that's cool, thank you," pulls out a knife and charges at them. And they shoot and kill him. And, you know, those guys didn't plan on doing that. You know, that wasn't on their bucket list for that day. It just is shit that happened, and that's what law enforcement is. So that's for the people that say, like, "Oh, he's blowing this out of proportion." He's really not, because it's just that very next radio call or that very next stupid interaction of just trying to be nice to somebody that could put you in that spot. And that's why this is very, very serious. And I'm very disappointed that the lawmakers, because while a lot of them are not cops, I feel like there are a lot of them that are attorneys. And I am really upset that they are not able to understand how stupid this is.
Well, the guy behind the bill was a cop, but that doesn't mean he was a good one.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I've met plenty of people with badges that I wouldn't want to take on patrol with me.
And I think that's the thing to call out too, right? Is in this profession, nobody likes calling out somebody who's doing it wrong more than the mass majority that are doing it right.
Right.
Like my rant earlier in this about one specific agency, I will fight that argument to the death. If you want to have a special, Kristopher, and it's me and one of those guys facing off for 45 minutes on why they think they deserve to keep their unmarked cars and all this other nonsense, bring it on, because it's absolutely ridiculous. Your primary vehicle should not be a police car. I do not want to drive a police car when I'm not in uniform. Sometimes in uniform, I don't want to drive a police car, right?
Agreed. Let's have that debate at the range and do some quantifiable skills testing, you know, or on the mats at the gym. You know, the guy behind the bill didn't stay in law enforcement. Generally, if you're good at something, you make a career out of it.
That is interesting, and I don't know why I don't know why that is. And to be fair, I have offered Steve multiple chances to come on. Because what I really wanted was I wanted Bartles and either the co-author or one of the other people from the committee to come on, and I wanted there to be 2 of them and 2 law enforcement officers, and I wanted to have a back and forth and try to figure out what's going on. But
I mean,
would not do that.
Yeah, but look who showed up.
Yeah.
And also, let's talk about accountability to the people, because ultimately law enforcement, I mean, it's the lowest level of executive power with lethal force that walks in and among the citizens, right? I mean, call it what it is. That's what law enforcement is.
Yeah.
And so now you have a bill that seems like it's tailored by legislators that aren't really involved to try to make the law enforcement officers who are most of the people minimized thereby making law enforcement less accountable to the people they police. I'm not a geopolitical expert, but I don't know a whole lot of nations where that's been a good sign.
Yeah. He refuses to comment. He refuses to answer anything. Barr's testimony says reserves have 5 days of training, and that's it. Yeah. Talk about that, if you will. And I understand.
Tell Bartles I got a 1.2 second Bakersfield drill with a score of 97 for the last 6 months. He's welcome, more than welcome, to try to come compete with me.
I mean,
I'm a disabled veteran.
In layman's terms, just so to try to help the public understand the type of training reserves go through. There is, if you're not tier 1 and tier 2, you go through what's called a 40-hour pre-basic, which is a 40-hour class, usually over a week, that basically all the classroom stuff that's taught in the academy, it's a crunch down version of it that you go through. Right after that, you go through stops, which is felony, traffic stops, things like that. You go through defensive tactics, just the same class the academy goes through. You qualify at the firing range just the same way, and you have to meet the same qualifications that the academy does. I know I'm missing some others. There's some other ones in there too, all the same that you have to do at the academy. Then we go through 300 and some hours of FTO. Just like when you're out of the academy, you have to go through FTO. We do our state mandates every single year, just like every full-time officer has to do every year. We recert in DTs, taser, stops, qualifications at the firing range, building clearing, all that stuff every single year, just like full-time officers do.
Yep.
And beyond that, we go to classes at the academy and all over the state. We have evidence techs, we have detective schools, we have, I'm a member of the SART team, which is a sexual assault response team.
Yeah.
We get 5 days of training. I would beg to differ completely. And I think for me, that's one of the most irritating and infuriating. You're less than because you didn't go sleep at the academy for 16 weeks.
Yeah.
But I think the difference with that, and first off, I'm 100% an advocate of what you just said. I went through the same training. I went through the same FTO. It sounds like Elias has as well. But some agencies don't do that. They call it quits. And I think that's where that's unacceptable. I think
agreed.
There is nobody that I've spoken to about this bill that isn't for more training, but make that training achievable and make it have quantifiable results in the end, right? Yep. Do like Florida does. Partner with a community college. That's going to take money away from ILEA a little bit, but allow folks to do self-paced at home. Have some that you actually go into a school for. And that's gonna take people out of this, right? That's gonna take the people that don't want to commit the time into it because they want to make a quick buck. But it's gonna keep people that are doing this for the right reason into it, and it's not gonna expose them to undue liability. But if you're gonna do anything from a legislative level, enforce more training. We get that now with the training we have to do on mandates. For folks not in law enforcement, there's a subset of training that we all have to go through every year that's on different focus areas, right? Different ways of handling situations of people that have, different mental disabilities in general. How do you respond to certain scenes? All that sort of stuff we have to cover each year. And now there's a mandatory de-escalation training and mandatory ways you're going to do DTs. So they're dictating this on such a level already. It's not a big deal to wrap it up and say, hey, if you're a reserve now, you've got to do another 160 hours of criminal law. We'll do it self-paced at home. You can then test, right? Do something like that. Where's the liability actually lie? Because ultimately, my agency, my county has said that they have enough trust in me to give me a car that goes fast and has lights and a siren. They've given me a gun and they've told me go out and protect people. So they have a level of trust in me. Why isn't then the state going to have a level of trust in them that we're all going to go out and do the right thing?
Yeah. I absolutely think that they have gone out of their way to not address the problem. And if there's any institution out there that's making 40-hour shake and bakes, I mean, first of all, they're setting them up to get killed. They're or potentially hurt or harm, kill somebody else. But that's absolutely unacceptable. How hard is it to write a training memorandum? I was in the Army for 13 years. I probably saw a training memorandum every week. I could probably write one for you from memory. You just have to change the letterhead a little bit. But no, they did this instead. And then they won't even tell anybody what they did. They won't publicize what they did.
Yeah, that's horrible. Dan Fountain says, when I was at the State House regarding 1186, where I signed up to speak, but the chairman just went forward and to pass the amendments, then moved directly to the next bill. While I was there last week, it's obvious the state representatives are being fed from other LEOs that is in favor of this bill. I spoke with two PD chiefs that are in favor of the bill, especially the MOU. They told me the MOU would give them the tool needed to review the reserves before they are assigned to work with, and it cuts off there. But that's the other thing that part sounds absolutely ludicrous to me, because we all know, and it probably shouldn't be this way, but it is. There are internal politics that come into play, and you might have a sheriff that doesn't like this town marshal or this chief of police or yada yada yada. And so while you have people that get along, you might have people who won't sign this MOU, and that's all good and fine. Like right now, to say like, okay, we're going to just sign blanket MOUs for places that we think that we're going to need to be. But what happens when you don't know where you need to go? And that's often what law enforcement work is. You don't know until it happens. No one's going to be signing MOUs. You're not going to be thinking about that. Brian Pryor says, I agree with more training, but the departments need to be held accountable for officers not meeting requirements. This should not fall on just an officer. This bill is trying to micromanage, and it's written people that have not a clue what entailed in a career. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's accurate. Yeah. So, well, let's see here. A whole lot of words, time, and money to not solve a problem sounds like government. Yeah, that's absolutely true too. So, well, I appreciate you guys coming on. I don't want to hold you guys much longer, but before we wrap up, just I guess kind of if you want to go around, kind of give final thoughts about this and what your thoughts are moving forward.
Can I feed the trolls? Can I feed the trolls a little bit with the 25-foot rule?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So I saw some comments early that were talking about how the 25-foot rule shouldn't be a thing, right? I think that is a law that I don't know anybody that's really enforced as far as putting someone in handcuffs, but I can tell you in a situation where you have a active, very fluid scene, that is a great tool to gain compliance where it is needed and give you another tool other than telling somebody to leave. You can put some actual force behind it and say, hey, if you don't, I'm going to take you to jail. Obviously, we try to de-escalate as much as we can, but I can give you an example. A few weeks ago, we were on a call, person with a gun, whole bunch of little kids involved, whole bunch of people that were intoxicated, a just very chaotic scene, everybody screaming at each other. We're trying to calm people down. We finally get people calmed down, and then somebody comes in and grabs a kid that wasn't even from this address. And then it all starts back up again, right? And then we got to try to calm everybody back down. And then what do you know? Like clockwork, somebody else comes from across the street, tries to grab a little kid, all goes back up again. So that 25-foot rule gave us a tool to say, hey, if you don't back up, we're going to have to take this to the next step, right? It allows us to keep scenes safe and ensure, one, that if it is a crime scene, we can make sure that that is staying locked down and that we can establish things like crime scene logs and do things that make good investigations and put bad people behind bars, but also ensure that we're not introducing unnecessary emotions into already chaotic situations. You know, generally that law is not being exercised in a fun scene, right? It's not a scene where everybody's, you know, blowing out birthday candles and piñatas and balloons, right? Generally it's very chaotic, screaming, and we're trying to make sure that we contain and calm those down. So in that case, that 25-foot rule has been great. I think I saw some case law last year where Lawrence locked somebody up for it and it stood. Your mileage may vary, but I know from our perspective, it's been good just to kind of curtail it.
Yeah. You know, and listen, I think definitely from what you're saying there, those sound a little bit different. I mean, I think those sound like reasonable situations in which that would be used. I think a lot of people, what you're seeing is people that are like, you know, walking down the road and they're filming a cop, those things. I'm not specifically a First Amendment auditor. I first of all, I think that's kind of a weird thing. I think it's like a misnomer. It's like there's so many more amendments that I care about than just the First Amendment. So like maybe a constitutional auditor, whatever. But you know, I think I have never known anyone to care like in Muncie, and Muncie can get pretty aggressive. Hell, we had the FBI come in and hook a bunch of officers for beating people a while back, but I've never known anyone in Muncie that's said, hey, you can't be filming here on the sidewalk. I know it does happen places, but it doesn't sound like really what you were talking about really fit that kind of thing as much. And I don't know. I mean, you know, if you'd have a problem with someone standing in public, you know, watching you work, as long as they're not interacting with the scene, you know, but that didn't sound like what you were talking about there. But yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying there.
Thing I'll say to that is be ready to get a subpoena and a search warrant for that cell phone, because we may need the footage.
Absolutely.
That's the thing, you're exposing yourself to that.
Yeah.
With that, right? Is we may use that for investigatory purposes.
100%. Absolutely. Devon, any thoughts?
No, I just think that people just need to understand the ramifications if this does pass. It's not only going to affect, you know, those large events that I talked about, but it's also going to affect the smaller towns with, you know, let's say a couple hundred people, especially the rural towns. If you have an emergency and call 911, would you rather wait 20 minutes for a full-time officer coming on the other side of the county, or would you rather wait 2 minutes for the reserve that's sitting there, you know, ready to work? But what's going to happen is as I apologize, I don't remember your name, but I'm bad at names. But as he said, you know, if we're not going to risk our families, our, you know, livelihoods, our finances, everything, if the state isn't going to back us, or if it could become a huge liability to us. So reserves are going to start dropping like flies. And that's unfortunate to say. I know me personally, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, you know, I am 43 years old, so that limits some of the things I can do. I am a single mom with, you know, a freshman in high school. I can't go away to the academy for an extended period of time. So I don't know what's going to happen. So I just hope that people start to talk more about this and the awareness gets out more. I think by you doing this, it helps get that awareness out, but getting the awareness and making it a conversation and an open conversation from both sides is what needs to happen.
Yeah. I wish the other side would have a conversation, and it's really frustrating. And it really goes back to that kind of idea of you know, you get the government that you deserve. You know, there's a lot of people that don't pay attention to who these state representatives are. They continue to put the same people in time and time again. And, you know, listen, I'm a conservative libertarian. I've considered myself a Republican for a lot of times. There's nobody in Indiana that I'm more mad than the Republican Party. They are a joke. It's ridiculous. And so many people say, oh, that's the Republican. They're good. We're going to put them back in. And we get shit like this when that happens. And so that's something that people need to pay attention to. And you need to get out and vote. We need to start getting people educated on these things. Politics isn't fun. I understand people don't like it. It's crazy. It's not, but maybe tune out the national stuff. If you're not into the national stuff, tune it out. But the local stuff, what goes on in your city, in your town, in your county, and in the state really matters, because stuff like this happens. These people work 2 or 3 days a week for 3 months. And think about the amount of damage they can do by going down. They go down there and they go through this massive frenzy of writing bills. There's like 1,200 bills this time. And
wait, they only work a couple of days for 3 months. Are you sure they've had enough training to do this job?
They're not meeting their requirements.
I'm just saying, maybe we need to have some accountability there.
That's really good. But yeah. So but it's ridiculous. So going on to you then, Elias, any last thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm evaluating OnlyFans, but on a serious note, the bill is obviously a train wreck written by people who don't understand what second and third order effects are. But I think the bigger problem at this point is the fact that they aren't willing to have a discussion about the bill. They are completely ignoring the majority of the state being impacted very negatively, making Hoosiers less safe, and they won't even respond to an email about it. Right. That makes it look just as shady as, like I said earlier, it's the equivalent of turning their body cameras off.
Yeah.
And that's our elected. Okay. All right.
Matt Commons, for instance, when he posted that video, I put a comment on it almost right away and said, hey, you're about an hour from me. Come up and do a ride along. I'm not a bad person. I'm not hard to get along with. We're going to listen to some gangster rap for a couple of hours. And more importantly, you're going to get to hear my perspective and my supervisor's perspective and everyone else that has to work with me and our other reserves on a day in and day basis. And ultimately count on us to show up when shit goes down and ensure that we're going to help them go home. Right.
I mean, go talk to the guys that we've backed up and see if our presence mattered to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's probably the best thing to say. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it, gentlemen and gentlelady there. Thank you. I appreciate you guys coming on here. I definitely want to stay in contact with you. This has been very informative. You guys have had a lot of great information, and I'm glad that I had several different people, and I know that there are people out there that are like, I wanted to be on. I want to do this. I have been talking to so many people in the last couple of days. It was just kind of like I just grabbed the first couple names I came to. So it wasn't because I don't know any of you. I've never talked to any of you before. I mean, just in passing, we've just in the last week, we've been, chatting, but so I want to thank you guys for coming on. All of you are welcome here anytime. If there's ever anything that you want to say or need to say, or you want to come back and shoot the shit and bitch about something or bitch about government or whatever, you're always welcome back here. I thank you guys for coming on. I definitely thank you guys for your service. Appreciate everything you do. Definitely thank you for your military service as well. So thank you guys very much. And I will be fighting this, and stay tuned, watching the show. We'll be covering this. Obviously, we'll be live streaming the thing tomorrow, and we'll be fighting this until the end, one way or another. The other thing is, what everybody needs to keep in mind, and this is one thing that we can use. Governor Braun said, and I've got the clip for him. He said multiple times during the election that he was going to listen to law enforcement. When it comes to law enforcement matters, he was going to listen to law enforcement. So if this goes through the State House, and if this goes to the Senate, and if they pass this, Governor Braun could still veto it. And so that is the last ditch effort, where if this happens and these idiots push this through, we can always start bombarding the governor and saying, hey, this needs to be vetoed, in hopes that he will do what he said he would during the campaign. So we've always got that option as well, but we'll have to see what happens. So thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it. I'll let you get back to your lives, and we'll see what goes on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was our panel. I want to thank Deputy Ron Jones from the Miami County, Indiana Sheriff's Department. Lieutenant Devon Ashcraft. I always want to say Ashcraft. Lieutenant Devon Ashcraft with the Shirley, Indiana Police Department. I'm going to put that up there. And then, and then Elias. No, sorry. I was just going through the names. And then Elias Donker. I still never got if that's his correct pronunciation. Donker. I think that's what it is. Patrolman with the West Terre, Haute, Indiana Police Department. And listen, I got to tell you, it's interesting because a lot of the people I talk to are like politicians. And so whether or not they actually like people or not, they know how to bullshit and they know how to put on that smile and they know how to like come on and be like, yeah, do that thing. It was weird pulling these three people on because when they first came on, we came on like 20 minutes before we went live and we were just kind of sitting there staring at each other. And it was like, they were like, we don't really want to be here, but and I'm not talking badly about them. I'm just saying they wish this wasn't happening. And then these are people that like, they didn't plan on coming live and going here and being out here in front of this, but they're fighting for something that they believe in. And I didn't know how it was going to go. I thought, man, I don't know if I'm going to have to pull things out of these people. But that was a really good panel. All three of them had wonderful conversations there. They had things, wonderful things to add. I very much enjoyed talking to all three of them and hearing from all three of them. And I hope for them, I hope for their departments, and I hope for the people in Indiana that we are able to push back against this and defeat this. So we will go through the committee tomorrow. We will live stream it. After the committee, when the committee ends tomorrow evening, we will do the same thing where we kind of break it down and talk about what happened, what, if anything, happened, talk about the amendments. Okay. So this House Bill number 1186, it is up. This is the, I don't know how they're saying this is the most recent. Let me see, because this still says January 30th. So I don't know. I'm going to go and see if I can find if there is, if there's something. Give me a second here. Someone said there were now 9 amendments. Oops, that was the wrong thing. Let me see. No, it just keeps coming back to this damn. It just keeps coming back to this damn January 30th. Oh, and let me tell you something that I just found, and I have not seen this. This is really strange. Do you see what I see, Kate? So, very odd down here. Look at this. Effective July 1st, 2025. Normally, when they do things like this, they go through and they don't actually take effect until like a year from now. But they're like really trying to quickly jam this through That's really interesting too. I just, you just have to wonder what is going on, because what is the damn hurry about this? Everything that's going on. I was talking to somebody today, and they were like, all of the major bills currently in Indiana that everybody's focusing on are like some of the dumbest bills out there. They're the most ludicrous, the most ridiculous, the most nonsensical waste of time bullshit. And it's just more of the same. So I don't know. We'll have to see what goes on. I am going to spend tonight, and I'm going to read through this 44 pages. I'm going to watch what goes on tomorrow. We will be live streaming it right here, so be sure to tune in. It's not up yet, but I will get that up when we get off of here. I'll get that up, and you can click on that on YouTube. It will be on YouTube. It'll be on Facebook, and it will be on X. And so please look out for it there. It will start at 10:30 tomorrow, and it will run for the length of the committee meeting. So I don't know exactly how long it'll take, but we will be here for the duration. So please tune in then, and then be sure to tune in tomorrow night. Tune in tomorrow night when we will break down what happens in the committee meeting tomorrow. And that'll be very interesting to see just exactly what goes on there. And yeah, just quickly before we end here, let me see. I noticed this before we went live, and I want to put this up for everybody. This is kind of like what is it? What do all the kids say? Yeah, here we go. Here's what it is. This is just published new amendments. Where, Ron? Tell me where you're seeing that at. While we're waiting on him to tell us that, I want to show this. And this is, yeah.
Go into IGA, go to actual and
What?
if you go to the IGA, look up 11 6.
Okay.
Okay, and on the left, there's that menu where you have fill actions, all that shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Go further down, it says committee amendments.
Committee amendments. Okay. I will go to committee amendments. I see them. Yes. Okay. I do see that. Yes. So, yes. Okay. We will look at those in just 1 second. I appreciate that, Kate, and I appreciate that, Ron. Look, good man. He's still giving back up here. He got off, but he's still right here backing us up. That's a dedicated guy. Yeah, here's a little bit of if you know, you know. So here is West Terre Haute Police Department. This is where Elias was from, and this shows one of their officers with his absolutely amazing and adorable G9. This is a new G9 unit. I guess this is we would like to announce the newest member of the West Terre Haute Police Narcotics Canine Team. Chris, a 3-week-old Nigerian dwarf goat being trained on narcotics detection. He is assigned to Officer Tommy Roberts from our canine team. With Chris's smaller size, he will be able to get into small, tight spaces for a more thorough narcotics search. And I just want to say that might be the GOAT, but I am the original OG. So, you know, if you know, you know. But all right, let's go take a look at these amendments really quickly and see what goes on here. Amendment 7, school resource. Okay, we're going to see what these jokers are doing here. So Amendment 7 is school resource officers. Of course, we were aware of that. Markup. Let's see. Okay. This talks about the school resource officer. Okay. So that's that. Sorry, I was looking. Markup document. Let's look at this next thing, what that is for. Merged. Okay, that don't matter. All right, then let's look at Amendment 9. Marion County Sheriff's deputies. Okay, let's take a look at this. Because now this is talking about the deputies. Proposed amendment. Marion County Sheriff's deputies provide that all deputies, excluding reserve deputies and jail deputies employed by the Marion County Sheriff's Office on July 1st, okay, makes changes to the definition of law enforcement officer. Now, wait a minute. Weren't they originally taking them to Tier 1? Or was it always Tier 2? Let me go back and look. What the hell? Let me see here. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'm not seeing anything here. I'm off the page real quick. Ron, are you seeing anything? Are you seeing anything in here that is different?
Christopher,
Yeah.
you have to go up to the veterans study, amendment number 3.
Have
It's
to
talking
go.
about the Marion County Sheriff.
Yeah.
And that was, shall be certified by the law enforcement agency as Tier 1. So they're re-amending it, apparently.
Okay, so it was originally Tier 1.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought it was. So yeah, right here. Okay, I am. Yep. Right here we go. So it was all related to Marion County Sheriff's Office. So somebody got butthurt. Some of them got butthurt about someone got butthurt about them being waved over into Tier 1. and whatever. But, this is total chaos. Yeah, right here. Shall be certified by Law Enforcement Training Board as Tier 1 law enforcement. And now it is shall be certified by the Law Enforcement Training Board as Tier 2. And there we go. So, folks, it's nuts. We will be looking at this tomorrow. We'll go from there. Please do us a favor. For those officers, out of respect for those officers, please go and hit the like button before you leave here. Let's pound that like button if you would. Share the show with everyone you know. Help spread the word. And tune in tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to see what goes on with the committee meeting. And then beyond that, tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, we'll be talking about what's going on. I've got a couple of other small things I want to talk about. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Big day tomorrow. Big day. We got a big day tomorrow. We've got a big day Thursday, and quite possibly a big day Friday. I'll keep you guys posted. So take care. God bless. Have a good evening. And we'll see you back here tomorrow morning, bright and early. Good night.